Đang xem tim thai đây, đập rất đều. Thưa bác sĩ, con có khỏe không ạ? Mọi thứ đều ổn, tim thai tốt.
Em thấy nhẹ cả người rồi.
Hello everyone, welcome back to our channel. Today's story is a touching and joyful moment in the life of Tieu Hue and CEO Tuan. One morning, Tieu Hue suddenly felt tired and dizzy, and a small suspicion appeared in her heart. She decided to buy a pregnancy test, and when the result showed 2 lines, her life changed in an instant. Overwhelmed with emotion, she immediately shared the news with Tuan. The moment he heard that they were going to have a baby, he couldn't hide his happiness. He rushed home, hugged her tightly, and the two of them celebrated the beautiful news together. The next day, Tuan carefully took Tieu Hue to the hospital for a checkup. When the doctor confirmed the pregnancy and showed them the first image of their baby on the screen, both of them were deeply moved. Even though the baby was still very small, it was already the greatest happiness in their lives. Their hearts were filled with love, hope, and dreams about the new family member who was about to arrive. If you enjoyed this emotional and heartwarming story about love, family, and the miracle of a new life, don't forget to like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss more beautiful stories like this in the future. Thank you for watching and supporting our channel. Early that morning, the sky outside the window was bright and peaceful, but Tieu Hue did not feel the same calm inside her body. When she woke up, a strange wave of exhaustion washed over her. Her head felt a little light, and even the simple act of standing up made her feel weak. She slowly sat on the edge of the bed, pressing a hand gently against her forehead as if trying to steady herself. For a moment, she thought it might just be because she had been busy with work for too many days in a row. Life with CEO Tuan had been full of responsibilities, and she often forgot to take care of herself. However, as she sat quietly in the soft morning light, a sudden thought crossed her mind. She realized that her monthly cycle had been late for several days. The moment that thought appeared, her heart began to beat faster. A quiet but powerful feeling rose inside her chest, a mixture of nervousness, curiosity, and a tiny spark of hope she didn't dare to fully believe yet. Tieu Hue placed a hand over her stomach, her fingers trembling slightly. Could it be possible? Could a new life really be growing inside her? The idea made her both excited and anxious. After thinking for a while, she decided she needed to know the truth. She quickly changed her clothes and walked to a small pharmacy near her house. The streets were still calm in the early morning, and the air felt cool against her face. Every step she took seemed heavier than usual because her mind was filled with countless thoughts. What if the test was negative? What if it was positive? How would Tuan react? The questions swirled endlessly in her mind. When she finally returned home with the pregnancy test in her hand, the quiet house suddenly felt different, almost as if it were waiting for an answer together with her. Tieu Hue stood in the bathroom for a moment, staring at the small box. Her hands trembled slightly as she opened it. She carefully followed the instructions, her heart pounding louder with every passing second. Then came the waiting. Those few minutes felt longer than any moment she had ever experienced. Tieu Hue paced slowly back and forth, occasionally glancing at the test, her breathing becoming deeper with anticipation. Her mind drifted to the future, imagining a small child running through the house, laughter filling every corner, and Tuan smiling proudly beside her. The thought alone warmed her heart. Finally, she gathered the courage to look closely at the test. For a brief moment, everything seemed to stop. 2 clear red lines appeared. Tieu Hue froze, her eyes widening in disbelief. She blinked once, then again, just to make sure she wasn't imagining it. But the result remained the same. 2 unmistakable lines. Tears slowly filled her eyes as the realization sank in. A deep, overwhelming joy rose from the bottom of her heart. Her hands gently moved to rest on her stomach, as if instinctively protecting the tiny life growing inside her. A soft smile appeared on her face while tears quietly rolled down her cheeks. In a whisper so gentle it was almost like a secret, she murmured, "Is it really you? Are you truly here, my little one?" At that moment, Tieu Hue knew that her life and the life she shared with Tuan was about to change forever. And for the first time that morning, the tiredness she had felt earlier was replaced by a warm, radiant happiness that filled her entire heart. The moment Tieu Hue saw the 2 red lines on the pregnancy test, her heart raced with a mixture of joy, disbelief, and overwhelming emotion. She stood there for a few seconds, holding the small stick in her hand as if it were the most precious thing in the world. Tears slowly formed in her eyes, not from sadness, but from a deep and unexpected happiness that she had never felt before. The quiet house suddenly seemed filled with warmth. She knew there was only one person she wanted to tell right away, Tuan. Her fingers trembled slightly as she picked up her phone and dialed his number. At that moment, CEO Tuan was in the middle of an important meeting at the company. The conference room was filled with serious discussions and the sound of business reports, but when his phone vibrated and he saw Tieu Hue's name on the screen, he immediately felt that something was different. Without hesitation, he excused himself and stepped outside to answer the call. "Hue, is everything okay?" he asked, his voice gentle but concerned. On the other end of the line, Tieu Hue took a deep breath. Her heart was beating so fast that she almost couldn't find the right words. For a brief moment, she simply smiled through her tears before finally speaking. "Tuan, I bought a pregnancy test this morning," she said softly. Her voice trembled slightly with emotion, "and it shows 2 lines." For a few seconds, there was complete silence. Tuan stood frozen in the hallway of his office building, trying to process what he had just heard. His mind replayed her words again and again. 2 lines. It took a moment before the meaning fully sank in. When it finally did, his face lit up with pure joy. A wide smile spread across his face, and he let out an excited laugh that he couldn't hold back. "Hue, are you serious? We're going to have a baby?" he asked, his voice filled with disbelief and happiness. "Yes," she replied, her voice now softer but full of warmth. "I think we're going to be parents." At that moment, nothing else in the world seemed to matter to him. Not the meeting, not the company, not the countless responsibilities waiting for him. Without thinking twice, Tuan quickly told his assistant to postpone the meeting and grabbed his car keys. His heart was pounding with excitement as he rushed to the parking lot. The drive home felt both fast and slow at the same time. Tuan kept smiling to himself as he imagined the future, holding a tiny baby in his arms, watching Tieu Hue become a loving mother, and building an even warmer family together. The thought alone filled him with a happiness he had never known before. When he finally arrived home and pushed open the door, he saw Tieu Hue standing in the living room, still holding the pregnancy test in her hand. The moment their eyes met, neither of them needed to say anything. Tuan quickly walked toward her and wrapped his arms around her in a tight embrace. "Thank you," he whispered emotionally. "This is the greatest gift you could ever give me." Tieu Hue rested her head against his chest, feeling his heartbeat racing just as fast as hers. In that quiet moment, surrounded by love and excitement, both of them knew their lives were about to begin a beautiful new chapter, one filled with hope, laughter, and the promise of a little life growing between them. The next morning arrived with a soft golden sunlight shining through the windows, bringing with it a feeling of warmth and new beginnings. For Tieu Hue and Tuan, this was not just another ordinary day. It was the first morning after learning that a tiny new life might be growing inside her. Even though they were both still overwhelmed with happiness, Tuan insisted that they visit the hospital to confirm the pregnancy and make sure everything was safe and healthy. From the moment they left the house, Tuan treated Tieu Hue with extra care, as if she were the most precious treasure in the world. He opened the car door for her gently and reminded her to move slowly. During the drive, he held the steering wheel carefully and drove more slowly than usual. Every few seconds, he glanced at her with a soft smile, unable to hide the excitement in his eyes. "Are you feeling okay?" he asked softly. Tieu Hue nodded with a warm smile. "I'm fine, just a little nervous, but also very happy." Tuan reached over and gently held her hand for a moment before focusing back on the road. "Don't worry," he said warmly. "No matter what happens, I'll always be here with you." When they arrived at the hospital, the quiet hallway and gentle voices of doctors and nurses made the moment feel even more real. Tieu Hue sat beside Tuan while waiting for their turn, her hands resting lightly on her stomach. Even though the baby was still invisible to the world, she already felt a deep connection forming in her heart. Soon, the nurse called her name, and the two of them walked into the examination room together. The doctor greeted them kindly and began the checkup. Tieu Hue lay down quietly while Tuan stood beside her, holding her hand tightly. He could feel her fingers trembling slightly, and he squeezed her hand gently to reassure her. After a few moments, the doctor smiled as she looked at the screen. "Congratulations," she said warmly. "You are pregnant." Those simple words felt like music to their ears. The doctor then turned the monitor slightly so they could see. On the screen appeared a tiny image, a small, dark shape that represented the beginning of a new life. Even though the baby was still very small, it was the most beautiful sight they had ever seen. Tieu Hue's eyes filled with tears as she stared at the screen. She had imagined this moment many times, but the real feeling was far more powerful than she had expected. Tuan stood beside her, unable to hide the emotion in his face. His eyes shone with pride, love, and deep happiness. "That's our baby," he whispered softly. When the examination finished, the doctor gave them advice about nutrition, rest, and regular checkups. Tuan listened carefully to every word, determined to do everything possible to protect both mother and child. As they walked out of the hospital together, the afternoon sunlight felt brighter than ever before. The world around them seemed full of hope. Tuan gently placed his arm around Tieu Hue's shoulders and smiled down at her. "From today on, my most important mission is taking care of both of you." Tieu Hue laughed softly, her heart filled with love and peace. As she rested her hand on her stomach, she knew that their family was about to grow, and that the days ahead would be filled with laughter, dreams, and the joyful sound of a child's voice in their home.
Hello, xin chào tất cả các khán giả của kênh Tieu Hue Life. Vậy là trong câu chuyện của chúng ta ngày hôm nay, tác giả đã viết về nội dung đó chính là việc Tieu Hue cảm thấy trong người rất là khó chịu, cô không được khỏe, cô thường xuyên cảm thấy bản thân nôn nao, chóng mặt và buồn nôn. Do đó cô đã là mình có thể là đã mang thai, do đó cô đã mua que thử thai về và thử, và kết quả cho thấy que đã hiện lên 2 vạch thông báo là cô đã có thai. Cô đã thông báo với Tuấn và Tuấn cũng rất là vui mừng hạnh phúc, bởi vì đây chính là kết quả tình yêu của hai người. Tuấn đã lập tức đưa Tiểu Huế đi đến phòng khám siêu âm để bác sĩ khẳng định chắc chắn xem là Tiểu Huế có mang thai thực sự hay không. Mọi tình tiết hấp dẫn sẽ còn được kể ở các câu chuyện tiếp theo. Các bạn hãy đón xem ở các video tiếp theo nha. Các bạn đừng quên bấm like, share, chia sẻ thật nhiều video để lan tỏa câu chuyện tình yêu này nha. Cảm ơn các bạn rất nhiều. Bye bye.